Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris, and there's a lot to talk about because one thing that Kalen DeBoer sure does, it's been a whirlwind. He works really fast because he's building this entire coaching staff. He's recruiting players. He's recruiting coaches, and he may finally have his coaching staff intact. The addition of William Inge and Jay Nunez announced earlier this week per social media. None of these are official, according to the University of Alabama, but sources and a lot of reports and social media profiles say Inge, who was with DeBoer as Washington's co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, will have similar responsibilities working with the linebackers at Alabama. This is the third straight coaching stop that DeBoer has recruited Inge to come along with. He was the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Fresno State when DeBoer was FSU's head coach earlier this few years ago. Jay Nunez will reportedly be Alabama's special teams coordinator. He was a special teams analyst at Oklahoma the past 2 seasons, also an assistant head coach at Eastern Michigan before that. So a lot to talk about. Those two are just two of the such an impressive group that it feels like we knew that when DeBoer, he had his offensive background, he was going to bring a lot of his offensive staff. Rodney, what do you think about this defensive staff that he's bringing? That he's bringing guys who are head coaches at, say, like South Alabama to be his defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot.
Yeah, and again, I think you made a great point there. Even though they are on the defensive side of the ball, they weren't with him at Washington except for Inge. They have a lot of connections. They've worked together in the past. Kane Womack has worked with Kalen DeBoer in the past. And, you know, I think when you look at this group as a whole, I mean, you only have one guy on that side of the ball, on both sides of the ball, actually, that were here on the previous staff. Obviously, on the defensive side, Freddie Roach, the defensive line coach, and then also the other guys that they have brought in. I think it's a really good mix. Guys that have been coordinators and some that have been head coaches. I mean, that's a lot of experience that they have on that defensive side of the ball.
And it's not just guys who had been the head coach before. I mean, you got Kane Womack, you got Maurice Linguist, who is the head coach at Buffalo, but you also have a guy like Colin Hitchler, who did such fantastic work at Cincinnati and also Wisconsin as co-defensive coordinators. He may be one of the best defensive backs coaches in the entire nation.
Well, I think that 2021 secondary at Cincinnati that they had under Luke Fickell, the head coach there, when they played Alabama in the playoffs, that might have been the best secondary I saw that year, and certainly one of the best I've seen. You know, he's done a fantastic job. I always say, look, when a coach leaves a school like he left Wisconsin, look at what their fans, look at what the people around the program have to say. And when Hitchler took this job at Alabama, there was a lot of disappointment among the Wisconsin people that he was leaving. Not only a really talented coach, but he does something that down here is really important. That's he recruits extremely well.
Absolutely. And you look at the offensive staff, you shift the focus there. There's a lot of guys from Washington. The number one guy that everybody kind of knew from Washington, Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator, and there is some word that he may get an opportunity to be the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, to go to the NFL. Now, there's nothing is for sure, and it's one of those things, more Alabama fans I talk to, no news is good news, because we've been hearing about this smoke for about a week, 10 days.
Right, and you look at Ryan Grubb there. He did a fantastic job in 2 years at Washington. We talked about the year before they got there. DeBoer got at Washington, brought Ryan Grubb with him. They averaged 323 yards a game, total offense. The year they got there, Ryan Grubb's passing offense, number one in the country, 369 yards a game. They elevated the points per game from 21 points a game to 39. Has done a fantastic job. This year, Stu, they were second in the nation passing offense, barely missing out by less than a yard. But you know what? This is a really talented group of offensive coaches. Like you said, the continuity that they have there. And you talk about Ryan Grubb possibly going to Seattle. That certainly has been a lot of chatter. And again, who knows? We really don't know. But if you look at the guys they're talking to in Seattle, most of these guys, most of their candidates have NFL experience. Ryan Grubb doesn't have that. Does that mean that he would not be a viable candidate? No. But you would think that perhaps they would go in the direction of experience.
It is something that that's the one thing that Ryan Grubb lacks, that those other names that are associated with that OC search there at Seattle is lacking. The latest, Ryan Kafka, who was the New York Giants offensive coordinator, he wanted to interview, or they wanted him to come interview at Seattle. The Giants blocked that. It's a lateral move. Other than that, there's a lot of hush-hush rumors, but nothing substantial, nothing for sure. That's definitely something to stay tuned to. Heading into A-Day, which, by the way, April 13th, new news, that's coming out. But now it's time for Coach Talk. For all the buzz around the new guys that Rodney and I were just talking about on that coaching staff, head coach Kalen DeBoer says Freddie Roach and Robert Gillespie have been the glue. DeBoer says those two holdovers from the previous staff have been instrumental.
Man, these guys have been amazing. They helped us keep the team together, I think, through some tough times, even before I was hired. I think they had a huge impact on that. And then once I got here, just locking arms with them and trusting them. Just like I asked the guys to be all in on me, I was all in on them, and they've been that way as well.
That was Coach DeBoer in Mobile last week for the Senior Bowl. Big week for him, big week for the 3 Alabama players taking part. Outside linebacker Chris Braswell, 1 tackle in the game, but he really hoped to wow the teams in practice and the interviews. Braswell possibly working his way into the end of the first round in April's draft coming up. Kicker Will Reichert was named the top practice player at his position for that All-Star Senior Bowl game. The honor, not surprising. Some of the videos you saw on social media last week had Reichert connecting from 60-yard field goals and some windy conditions and everything like that. Guy's got a cannon.
He really does. I mean, the consistency that he showed here throughout his career was pretty amazing. He obviously hit a lot of big kicks in his career. So, Will Reichert, I think, has got a tremendous opportunity to have an NFL career.
Justin Eboigbe, the 3rd Alabama player, is taking part in the Senior Bowl. We're going to get much more into them as we get closer to the NFL draft. But from what Coach DeBoer had said, you know what? I'm not surprised, but it's really good to hear about the holdovers coming to the staff and really getting recognized, because a lot of times it's like the new guys coming in, they're getting all the publicity. Coach DeBoer, we're talking about Freddie Roach, talking about Robert Gillespie. They seem to really have a good cohesive unit on the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you have this kind of transition, it's really important if you can keep a couple of guys that obviously know the lay of the land a little bit. You talk about Freddie Roach, he's been around here forever. He was a player here, has a lot of experience. They have a lot of relationships on the team. And when he talked about held the team together, it's those relationships that they've built over the years as being coaches here. Robert Gillespie also has been around a few years. So, I think that they certainly in that kind of that period between Nick Saban and then DeBoer being hired, they played a really big role of keeping the team together, keeping the players, because they were being highly recruited. I mean, these players, let's be honest, there's a lot of tampering going on.
And guys who kind of it's not just experience, but they know the lay of the land in the Southeastern Conference, like Roach, like Gillespie, like Jatavius Sanders, who is going to be their top director of high school relations. That's not the official title, but coming from NC State, former Georgia head coach for high school. So he knows these are all guys who have these types of connections that DeBoer and some of the guys are trying to get a hold of here in the South. Now, to basketball, men's basketball continues to prove that they are #1 scoring offense. That is where they rank in the SEC, one of the tops in the nation. Last Saturday against Mississippi State, the Crimson Tide dominated 99-67 over the Bulldogs. They ended the first half at a 21-4 run. A lot of players in double figures, but after the game, what head coach Natos really wanted to talk about was the defense and the efficiency on defense and that tenacity, the effort. That's something that he had been really harboring for getting his team to kind of step up and play that way. And he said, if that can be the case, we knew we had offense, but after the defensive performance, that is the type of thing you can do something maybe in the NCAA tournament. You can have a chance to make this a very special season. What did you think watching that?
No, I think offensively, the way they've played, I mean, they've been pretty dominant with the scoring. You mentioned that, #1 in the SEC in scoring. And the defense has been something we've talked about week in and week out here is, hopefully it can improve. And, it was obviously that Nate Oates felt like last week in the bits that we ran here on Tider Insider TV that it was effort. It's a mindset. Playing defense is a mindset, and I think that's something that he's getting across to his players.
Mo Diabate and Jaron Stevenson, big off the bench, 50 points 50 bench points against Mississippi State. In going tomorrow to Auburn and Neville Arena, which Coach Oates has said it's like a high school gym. Just how small and how compact that it all is. It's going to be a test for this team, but, they surprised me to where they're at right now. Number 1, first place in the SEC.
Well, I mean, you have to. I mean, there was some concern a little bit. I mean, obviously when they had a tough streak there, they were playing tough competition. I think that pre-SEC competitions really prepared them for this run that they're on right now. They won 10 of their last 11 games and going down there. Look, it's going to be tough. It's going to be an atmosphere down there. It's going to be very interesting to see how this Alabama team responds.
That's right. 6 o'clock tomorrow night on ESPN2. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, Coach DeBoer and the Crimson Tide will not have to wait until tomorrow to get assurances on one of the best in-state players still out there. And we have the latest on what to expect on National Signing Day with our own Tider Insider, Rodney Orr. We're going to break it down next. Plus, coming up, we're going to welcome your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on your screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead, give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We will be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. Quentin QB Reese reaffirmed his commitment to the Crimson Tide this past weekend. He's ending any doubt and question on his recruitment. On Saturday, he was on his official visit to Alabama. This tweet went out. He captioned a tweet with, "Let's work." He's 6 foot, 205 pounds, 3-star linebacker, comes from great genes. His dad, a former great linebacker at Auburn. So there's a lot to like about this guy, and we're about to get into the signing day and what we can expect tomorrow from Ramsey and other spots, too. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tourism Tuscaloosa Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. So now we're getting into National Signing Day. No more Nick Saban. There's a lot of questions like how big of an impact did he have on a lot of these guys? I'll tell you, it's huge, but that doesn't mean that Coach DeBoer cannot build these types of relationships, which it seems like he's doing really well. Quentin Reese, what do you have?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Stu, you mentioned that. I mean, look, all these guys were open game. Julian Sayin left, Jameer Grimsley left, but other than that, the class stuck together. And to be able to land these 3 guys that we're expecting to sign tomorrow, obviously QB Reese has got, look at him, playmaker. I mean, you mentioned he's maybe not have the ideal size, but he is a playmaker. He's got the instincts. And again, I think, like you said, his father being Quentin Reese, a former player, I think that always helps. I mean, he grew up with it. But, real playmaker, very intelligent kid, and I think this is a big pickup.
I know it's high school, so these stats, it's not maybe college, it's not the SEC yet. But if you hear about some of these things, the last 2 years, 300 tackles.
Unbelievable, yeah.
50 tackles for a loss. He had 25 just last season as a senior, 9 sacks, 10 sacks. He is a tackling machine.
He kind of reminds me of, and again, maybe a little bit different style, but very similar, undersized Sean Dion Hamilton when he came out of high school out of Montgomery, was a guy that maybe didn't have the great size, but he had a lot of the natural instinctive football ability, made a lot of plays, and was a great player here, ended up playing some in the NFL.
That's a great comp. Sean Dion Hamilton, that wouldn't be a bad way to go through your college career with that comp continuing. Another one, we got Ryan Williams, a Saraland receiver. That's the one that everybody's talking about because, well, he's Mr. Football. The only Mr. Football 2-time winner of that award in the history of the state.
And he would have won it 3 times. Had he not reclassified to 2025, he'd have won it probably again next year. This is a really big pickup, obviously. That's an understatement. But here's the thing. A lot of people said when Kalen DeBoer was hired, he wouldn't be able to recruit here. Within an hour or whatever it was, after Nick Saban announced his retirement, Ryan Williams decommits. And 15 days later, he recommits. You got to look at the job that Kalen DeBoer and his staff coming in did to be able to lure Ryan Williams back in the fold. Because, look, this guy could have gone anywhere in the country. There was a lot of pressure among a lot of schools that were recruiting him.
And that is exactly what Ryan Williams said. He said as soon as Nick Saban retired, that was it. That was his connection to Alabama, and no more Nick Saban. So Coach DeBoer did the work. He put it in. He built the relationship.
Well, that's right. And I think when he got that feel from Kalen DeBoer and his staff. Not only that, you talk about Jamarcus Shepard, the wide receivers coach. He did a fantastic job. Ryan Grubb did an outstanding job. But it's the fit. You know, they showed him, hey, look, you come here, you play in this offense. It's kind of like the same things you did in high school. And I think that certainly made a big difference.
All right, one last one. Is it Noah Carter?
Noah Carter.
Noah Carter, he did have a relationship with Coach DeBoer. I had been committed to him there at the University of Washington. Coaching change, he got out of his deal and then wanted to come because he believes that much in Coach DeBoer, even though he's on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. You know, when I first thing I saw of him, he just jumps off the screen at you with his athleticism, his speed. He's a great pass rusher. He had 11 sacks this year, but he also led his team with 10 touchdowns on the offensive side. He's a tremendous receiver as well. He's just an incredible athlete, Stu. And he originally signed with Washington in December. Like you said, he got out of that national letter of intent when Kalen DeBoer, came here from Washington. And I think this is a huge pickup. We watched this video last week, but watch him here. I mean, he can do so many different things. Just a tremendous athlete. He's rated a 4-star player. I think he's a 5-star athlete, in my opinion.
Last week at the Mr. Football banquet, also Jay Lindsey, who goes to Patrician Academy, he reaffirmed his commitment to Alabama, says he had a great conversation last week with Coach DeBoer and is going to enroll this summer after he graduates. So, still to come on Tider Insider TV, Alabama women's basketball. Coach Kristy Curry hits a big milestone. We'll tell you more about that. And coming up, we're welcoming in your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information, interact with Tider Insider TV. Go ahead, give us a call, send us an email, contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. Any win is a big win in the SEC, but this one has a number attached to it. Number 500 for Alabama women's basketball coach Kristy Curry in her college coaching career. Big time over Vanderbilt last night in Nashville, 74-66. Sarah Ashley Barker, the SEC co-player of the week. She had 15 points in the third quarter alone, 24 in the game. Alabama comes back from down 8 in the fourth quarter and gets its fourth SEC road win of the season. Really impressive. They'll be back home on Thursday to take on Tennessee. Welcome back in. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harrison alongside the guy who you recognize from this show, Rodney York, Tider Insider TV. We now hit the phone lines. Number one, Charles from Gadsden, you're up. How are you?
Hey, how are you, bud?
Good.
I wanted to ask you about Ryan Grubb. I've heard all kind of rumors about him. Is he going to be a member of Coach DeBoer's staff in Alabama?
Yeah, he's a member right now. He's been recruiting. I think you're probably referring to the rumors of him possibly the Seattle Seahawks and the NFL have an interest in him as their offensive coordinator. Again, that's been a lot of speculation, but right now that's really all it's been. They've interviewed, I think, some other guys that have NFL experience. Will they interview Ryan Grubb? I really don't know. I do know his name's been bandied about as a potential candidate, however.
It's one of those things also. He is a candidate. He's 100% a candidate for the Seattle Seahawks job, but he has not ever been an NFL coach. His entire career has been in college. So it would be something that I think he's shown a lot of potential, but it is kind of an odd fit, it would feel like, a little bit in some respects compared to some of the other candidates.
You know, Stu, I think another thing, too, to consider is their new coach, Mike McDonald, is he's a young coach. He's in his mid-30s.
Yep.
Guy doesn't have a lot of experience himself. So I would think that maybe they would like to put an offensive coordinator in with him that has some NFL experience.
All righty, let's go to Rick from Brent. I think it's a similar topic. Ryan Grubb. Hey, Rick.
Yes, how are y'all tonight?
Good.
What do we want another offensive coordinator with that title if Grubb is unable to come? And who would it be?
That's a good question. I think that there is going to be somebody with the offensive coordinator title. It probably would lean more on Coach DeBoer being the play caller because it's somebody that, Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer have been together for so long. They probably have that trust built up in advance.
I think it's 16 years,
yeah,
something like that. Yeah, they've been together quite a while. And, Kalen DeBoer, like you said, he's an offensive guy in terms of his background. And I think, they've obviously worked together to build the offense that they have. It's been a joint effort. I think, obviously, there's some other coaches on that staff that have done a fantastic job. Scott Huff, the offensive line coach, and then also Jamarcus Shepard's been around quite a bit. And if I'm not mistaken, I may be mistaken on this, Stu, but I think Jamarcus Shepard, the wide receivers coach, has also been a passing game coordinator.
All right.
So he's got some experience in that regard. But at this point, Ryan Grubb is still the offensive coordinator at Alabama.
A lot to fit in, and there's more coming up right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and let's get directly to the email question of the day. That, of course, every week is brought to you by KDM Services, serving your family like our family. Here's the question coming up from Paige in Birmingham. Will Alabama be a real contender during March Madness, the NCAA tournament? I think that's an interesting question. They've surprised me. I think that going into this season, it wasn't going to be rebuilding, but you didn't kind of know what they had, especially in the middle.
No, I think when you look at all the turnover they've had, it's amazing where they are. I mean, it's really amazing right now. And, obviously, I think right now, when you look at them, they keep playing the way they are. Yeah. And here's the thing. I think they can get better, Stu. I think consistency, on the defensive end, certainly going to be really important. But I think this team right now is really starting to kind of gel together. Now, again, tomorrow night's going to be a real challenge for them on the road. We'll see how mature they are, but it does look like a team to me that's gelling and kind of maturing together.
Hey, it's always fun, like Nato said. It's a high school gym, and when those two teams get together, it is going to be a really exciting game to watch. We'll wrap it all up when we come back after this. Where does this time go? It's already been 30 minutes, so thank you for tuning in to Tider Insider, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30 after the 10 o'clock news and online at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with the celebration. Coach Kristy Curry's 500th career win, a big-time effort in Nashville. Come from behind. Tomorrow night, back at it, Tennessee. Catch up with you later. Have a great night.